Sabhi ko namaste, yellarigu namaskara, sabhi ko adab, sat sri akal, and a very, very fresh good morning to all the ladies and gentlemen present here. Well, quickly to introduce myself, my name is Navyata, and I am going to be your presenter and energizer for today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the entire team, we welcome to all of you to the fourth edition of DSCI Financial Security Conclave, FinSec 2022. We would like to extend a very, very warm and a cordial welcome to all our esteemed guests, delegates, speakers, sponsors, exhibitors, and partners. DSCI have been engaged in banking and financial service institutions for many years now. With growing digitalization in the financial sector and against the backdrop of increasingly sophisticated cyber threats, the need was felt for the leaders from this domain and the security industry to collaborate on a single platform. Hence, DSCI took this initiative in 2018 to organize an annual conference on the contours of financial security. FinSec 2022 would endeavor to reflect upon the growth trajectory of the country's financial sector and critically examine the security and privacy concerns associated with the current and possibly the future digitization context. These 2 days is hosting 85 plus speakers and 30 knowledge led sessions, including plenaries, keynotes, parallel tracks, workshops, and panel discussions that would cover key areas such as consumer trust, resiliency for digital enterprise, future of financial work, data enterprises, contactless transactions and payments, rapid application deployment, financial innovation, and many more. Well, both the days would be full of opportunities, experiences, and possibilities for all you attendees out there. With this, I extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you to the FinSec 2022 and hope all of you will leverage the maximum value out of it. Well, just in case our audience is not aware, one of you stand a chance to win utility tools worth 45,000 if you become our top attendee and score highest in the leaderboard. To keep everything fun and exciting, for the very first time, we are introducing a photo booth session on our event platform. You can bring out the FinTech geek in you and use our FinSec template in a frame and share your photographs on Instagram and Twitter using the hashtag FinSec2022. We are going to be featuring the best ones on our social platforms. Keep sharing your experience using the official hashtag FinSec2022 on social media and tag at the rate of DSCI_connect on Twitter. Well, also don't forget to check out our expo booths to know about the latest technologies and services our exhibitors, partners are offering. Well, this conclave would have not seen the light of the day without the support of our sponsors, exhibitors, and media partners. We take pride in announcing that Paytm is our platinum sponsor this year. The gold sponsors are Microsoft and Tenable. In the silver sponsors category, we have Ocops, LastPass, MySQL. Masterclass partner, Fortinet, and our exhibitors being Cyber SRC, Data Resolve, and Eventus TechSolve with Wire19 as our online media partner. And now I would like to welcome someone very, very special from the DSCI family. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, when she walks up and when this lady says, well done, it really means a lot for all of us. So please help me in welcoming Miss Rama Vedashree, the CEO of DSCI, to give a warm welcome to our audience and to set the tone for FinSec 2022.
A very good morning to all of you all joining us at the FinSec Conclave. Thank you, Navita, for kicking off this inaugural session. And on behalf of the entire DSCI team and all our industry partners, both from the financial services sector and the technology sector, who are helping us host this Financial Services Conclave 2022, which is our fourth edition. Welcome to all of you, particularly all the speakers who are joining us for several sessions in which they'll be able to share their experiences and knowledge and their technical expertise. To kick off this financial services conclave for this year, the digital payments industry and the overall financial services industry, the rapid digitization that has happened globally, and the way innovative technologies have got adopted, the attention to security and the exacerbated threats on this sector, I don't really need to reiterate that to the audience in this room. This sector, even in India, if we have seen the last year, year on year, there is estimated to be a 33% year on year growth in digital payments. And you can understand the way so many users have gone online for the first time, and a lot of their online transactions, online experiences are very tightly linked to payments and online payments and the kind of threats that we've had. We've always thought about, as a CISO who's running the cyber risk for the, who's managing the cyber risk for the enterprise, or a technology company servicing its customers in the security domain through their product or services offering. Probably we've been focused at best at the company level or at a sector level, and we've always left it to the regulators and the nodal institutions at the government level to deal with this cyber risk at a country level. But what is increasingly we are seeing is attention to cyber risk for critical information infrastructure sectors, particularly BFSI and other oil and gas sectors, coming from regulators, central governments, multilateral organizations. The kind of attention organizations like IMF or even World Economic Forum have been giving attention to cyber risk being one of the biggest risks at a global level is really gaining a lot of attention to this discipline. If you are, most of us in this conference, those from the financial services industry, while we are all familiar with the regulators in India and organizations like CERT, I'm sure the friends and colleagues from the financial services industry are familiar with the Financial Stability Board. It's a global entity or an organization which, if I'm not wrong, was created in 2009 under the initiative of G20. So this is the board which has regulators from all the G20 countries. India is a member of that, which actually deliberates and discusses on risk mitigation at a global level on financial stability. And when you look at it, I think from India, Deputy Governor, RBI, the SEBI, somebody senior from SEBI, Secretary Economic Affairs, they're all members of this Financial Stability Board. It is important to note that the Financial Stability Board has said that if there is a big ticket cyber incident anywhere in the world impacting the financial services systems, and if that incident is not contained well within a very short time frame, while we think whenever there is an incident or there is a breach, it may be affecting the financial and it has financial and reputation risks for the company or for the country or the sector at best. The Financial Stability Board says that if there is a big cyber incident and it is not managed and the risk is not contained immediately, it's actually going to impact the global financial system stability and the trust in the financial systems networks and platforms which the users place on. That's why there is increased attention of regulators to the cyber risk and also the overall data protection. Increasingly, why is this risk getting exacerbated for the sector in India is because the way we are getting digitized. I think the brick and mortar systems of engaging with consumers with paper based forms is now done and dusted. All our banks or insurance companies are engaging with consumers, and capital market companies are engaging with consumers online. Brick and mortar is probably a few spots where they create that for customer engagement from more from a sales perspective, not but from a customer transactions perspective. It's all happening online. And while the entire security technology services industry and the CISOs of the BFSI sector have always dealt with either inside, risk mitigations from an insider threats or hacktivists or, the cyber criminals. Now we are increasingly waking up to the risks of nation states and state sponsored groups. That's a fact reality, targeted with motivations of either geopolitical or ideological. They're also targeted at probably, just a larger scale disruption rather than financial gain, but also impacting the stability of at a country level or a regional level, and espionage being another one. So this combination of insider threats, cyber criminals, and state sponsored groups is something that at a country level and at an industry level we need to take cognizance of, and increasingly step up the way we give attention to cyber risk and its mitigation. And when we look at the way innovation is happening, the biggest challenge is every time there is a breach, and there is, breach of personal data or confidential data or financial data, the erosion of trust in the consumers who are treating us as fiduciaries, or we are treating us as guardians of their, personal sensitive data and their very critical or important financial information. That erosion of trust is even more difficult to bridge, because I think all of them are reposing trust in the technology companies, in the BFSI companies, that they trust us and they repose that faith in us. And every time there is an incident, more than the reputation and the financial risk, which probably is a little short term and can be managed by companies with deep pockets, the erosion of consumer trust is something that is very difficult to bridge. And this is where I think we as an industry, both the tech and the BFSI industry and the CISO and the services community, needs to step up on. And increasingly we are seeing, when we come to the regulators, not just the cybersecurity, but there is increased attention to data protection and privacy. And it's not just the the legislation part or the regulation part, but there is attention to data protection and privacy, because in the digital world, how do you engage with consumers and give them that trust that our technology systems and the platforms and services that I am enabling online as an enterprise are trustworthy for as critical as the financial services systems, which are the economy rail, which are really the rails of the economy of any country. So that is getting a lot of attention. And here we see, when we look at the entire data protection privacy, the I would say increasingly the focus is not just on complying to some regulation or a law. How do you revisit your entire enterprise IT assets, your cloud migration strategy, or your cloud workloads? What are you doing on the end user side, the way you're engaging with your consumers on social media platforms or on mobile applications? Some of the BFSI brands have started already leveraging Web 3.0 or metaverse, may not be for core financial transactions, but they started leveraging them for their brand presence and creating new consumer experiences, particularly with millennial audiences. In-game, engagements, where through online games, how do you engage with the millennials? In all of this, it's extremely important that we revisit our entire enterprise IT assets, deployment architectures, and the security architectures, or not just from a security perspective and breach mitigation perspective, but it's also important we review all of that security architecture and enterprise deployment architecture from a privacy standpoint. I think this is something that is increasingly needs to get the attention of the CISO and the chief privacy officer and the CIO. How do we assess, where often we assess our applications for the security, we assess our networks, we assess our data centers, but are we assessing all of them and your entire application portfolio and your application modernization? Is it getting attention from a privacy and a data protection standpoint and your data classification standpoint? That is something that I would humbly request all the officers from the financial services sector, which are tasked with either from a security or a privacy standpoint. That's one thing that is important. When we look at this, increasingly, when you're looking at your application modernization or migration or retirement, how are we revisiting them on how they are architected from a consent management perspective? How are they architected from a perspective of minimization of data? Because all said and done in BFSI, the business depends on data, and to be able to provide personalized and value added services to the consumers, it is a fact that data needs to be shared within the sector. Data needs to be shared with third party ecosystem providers who are together coming together to be the ecosystem of financial services provisioning on the digital platforms for an end user. Very rarely now an end user is engaging with one financial services institution, right? You may be banking with one, but there are any consumer is engaging with a set of players who are offering that personalized services on the digital stack. Here, when we look at, while sharing is extremely important, it's always been a holy grail on how do you manage personal data, how do you share that data for offering personalized services and balancing it with the data protection and the privacy requirements. I do agree it's not an easy problem to solve, but definitely that needs attention. That while the financial services industry will continue to move to integrate with third party systems based on platforms, including whether it is UPI or any other stack that you can look at with fintechs, how do you balance it with privacy, and how do you revisit this entire data flow and transactions with privacy being center stage in terms of whether it's in consent management, how do you anonymize or pseudonymize data, what is the attention that you're giving to encryption so that there is safe transactions on the wire when people are leveraging it either on the internet platforms or on Wi-Fi, on whatever, on the networks on which they're working on. That's another thing that is important. And when we look at the new risks that financial services industry, we are familiar with ransomware, we are familiar with extremely targeted phishing attacks on and DDoS attacks. And when you look at phishing, given the millions of users who are coming online to transact for their financial transactions, probably for the first time in the last 1 to 2 years time frame, I can't not put more attention on the collective responsibility of the tech and the BFSI industry to build that kind of awareness, both from a security and privacy standpoint. We owe it to our 1 billion plus users on our financial systems that we are putting continuous awareness. We are putting those continuous attention to awareness drives, because I think the weakest link could always be, while you have secured everything, you have bolted everything on your enterprise networks, we also need to take that accountability and responsibility for the users continuously stepping up the user awareness on the new league of attacks, the kind of phishing campaigns that happen either on email or on SMS. How do we keep our users aware? And it's not a one time effort, it needs to be a continuous effort that we need to give attention to. Similarly, when we look at in the financial systems world, it's not just a country's financial system, it's a global financial systems. So I would say that nodal institutions of government of India, regulators of the financial services industry, need to also give attention to international cooperation, who are working with other banking regulators and organizations like CERT, because I think particularly in this sector or any other critical infrastructure sectors, I don't think just industry members can mitigate the challenges of the cyber risk that we are having. Particularly in the last 1 to 2 years, a lot of attention, or we have been dealing with challenges in the supply chain risk, zero-day vulnerabilities of some very innocuous software products or hardware products that might have got integrated. We've also last year woken up, a few months back, we have woken up to open source software security issues impacting hundreds of IT systems across the world and in India. So while these new risks are coming up, I think there is need for deeper collaboration between the security services products industry and the BFSI industry. But we as industry should also collaborate more with government and urge them to put this international collaboration framework in place so that we can mitigate these risks. I would like to particularly compliment all the CISOs of the BFSI sector who in the last 2 years, apart from the pandemic, apart from all the lockdown, waves of lockdowns and working from home, getting their own workforce ready for this kind of a pandemic, operating in this pandemic environment. But the way they've partnered with the security services industry, several startups to secure their network. And I would like to continue to request their support and engagement with DSCI and the entire startup ecosystem, so that we can really become an hub. We are now scripting the story for digital payments across the world, thanks to the UPI stack and all that has happened. I think we have an opportunity when we partner between the security industry, technology industry, and BFSI. I think we can script the new growth story of India becoming a hub, not just for security industry, but riding on the digital payments wave that's happening in India. So thank you for joining us at FinSec. Now, my team have put together a very rich agenda. There are almost 85 speakers who are joining us. I do hope you and your teams will be able to catch some of these sessions and take the learnings away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rama ma'am, firstly for completing the moment for all of us and also giving the pros and cons on cybersecurity. Well, I'm sure, like me, a lot of people took a lot of pointers. So thank you so much once again for completing the moment. And now, yes, we move on to the next segment, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be having, it gives me great honor and privilege to actually welcome the next dignitary who's going to be joining us virtually. Well, it's a pre-recorded message from a gentleman here. Well, we have the honor of having with us Lieutenant General Rajesh Pant, the National Cybersecurity Coordinator of India, Government of India, for our inaugural ceremony. Well, just to give you all a quick introduction of our honorable guest, Dr. Pant is National Cybersecurity Coordinator in the National Security Council of India at the Prime Minister's office. He is responsible for coordinating all cybersecurity activities across multiple sectors. The gentleman holds a PhD in Information Security Metrics. Well, previously, he was the head of the Army Cyber Training Establishment for 3 years. He served in the Army Signal Corps for 41 years and was honored 3 times by the President of India for distinguished service of the highest order. Well, it gives me great honor and privilege to welcome Dr. Rajesh Pant virtually, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the inaugural address for all of us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Navita, and thanks to DSCI for having me here. Very good morning to all attendees of the DSCI FinSec Conclave 2022. I think this conclave is being held under very challenging times. In fact, one of the most challenging in human history, where the world is in the midst of a number of events: a major war in Eastern Europe, a looming technological divide between the West and the East, and an intense churning in global cyberspace. In fact, we thought that the COVID pandemic provided the perfect storm for cybercrime, but the present scenario is seeming to continue with that storm and continuing to facilitate cybercrime. And this is why I am highlighting this aspect, because the entire FinSec sector and the financial sector and the tech fins and the fintechs depend upon cyberspace for their functioning. So it is very important to understand this aspect, that the lack of international laws, the lack of cooperation among states has further exacerbated this situation. What is the result? The result is, at the national level, we find a 500% increase in cybercrime. In fact, just yesterday, you would have seen one of the airline companies, SpiceJet, also coming under a ransomware attack. Last month, on the 12th of April, we had a ransomware attack on our second largest public sector oil company, Oil India Limited at Duliajan in Assam, where their entire Windows environment was encrypted by this threat actor. And he had asked for some 380 bitcoins, which amounts to about 120 crores. And the message that was sent was that if you do not pay this ransom amount in 3 days, then the amount will be doubled. Fortunately, Oil India Limited has a very good CISO and a very good response team, and they, of course, did not pay anything, and they managed to convert their entire services into a Unix and a Linux-based sort of a system so that they could continue their business operations. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned from such attacks, which I'm sure the financial community will take into account as and when you go back to your organizations. As far as the financial frauds and the financial cybercrimes are concerned, let me also share with you that in our portal, cybercrime.gov.in, we get about 2,500 complaints a day. These are mostly the type of complaints relating to people losing money through all the frauds that you keep hearing every day, asking for KYC, making you click on a particular link, and whether it is wishing or phishing or smishing, the attack vectors keep varying. But a large number of people are losing their hard-earned money, and the banks and the financial sector needs to take this aspect very, very seriously. Last year, the official figures of incidents being reported to CERT is a figure of around 14 lakhs. And that is why the number has jumped in the last couple of years because of the aspects that I mentioned. So, what is the future going to be like? In my view, as and when the 5G services are launched from 15th August this year onwards, the attack surface will grow exponentially. And the reason for that is that in 5G, the IoT devices will be connected, as also the industrial IoT. So presently, let's say there are 700 million internet users in India and 1.2 billion smartphones. This figure will become at least 5 times because of the IoT and the industrial IoT. So the threat surface will increase exponentially, the vulnerabilities will increase exponentially, and the job of cybersecurity workforce will become more and more important and more difficult, possibly, at least in the initial years, till the time we learn to also address the OT issue, the operational technology issues. While IT is being discussed day in and day out, but the aspects of SCADA, PLC, etc. are not as much discussed, and there's a lot of work to be done on that side. What is the government doing? Well, what we have done recently is that out of all the critical sectors that we have, transportation, finance, etc., we thought that there were 2 sectors which are super critical, which is the telecom sector and the power sector. Because if telecom sector gets hit by an attack, then all the other services get affected because there's no information flow. And similarly, if power sector gets affected, then because of lack of power, all the other services are affected. So while the others are equally important, but the 2 critical, as I said, the super critical ones we address first. For the telecom sector, the government in December 2020 issued the National Security Directive on telecom sector, through which we have implemented it from June last year, that any product which is going to be connected to the telecom network of India has to be a trusted product from a trusted source. And what is a trusted source? There is a process behind it. We are going into the ultimate beneficiaries of that particular company, etc. And for the trusted product, we are going down to the level of active programmable semiconductors. So we are seeing again the companies from from where they are coming from. So trusted products and trusted source, the scheme has been in place since June last year, as I said, and there has not been any disruption in telecom services, which all of you have experienced. And it has been a lot of hard work for our office, but it has been implemented in the manner that the government wanted it to be done. For the power sector, in the power sector, there are different verticals. There is the power generation, the power transmission, the distribution, and the grid operations. And in each of these sectors now, we've established security operation centers. We've trained their CISOs. The regulator, which is the Central Electricity Authority, has issued guidelines for all these sectors. And the cybersecurity and the incident response of this entire sector has been revamped. And this is where we are also handling the IT and the OT aspects. In addition, we have also formulated, which I've been saying for quite some time, a national cybersecurity strategy, which is at the final stages of its approval, which is going to address the entire ecosystem of the nation, and it is going to explain a whole of a nation approach as to how the individuals, the business, the government, the academia, all have to contribute towards ensuring that our national cyberspace remains safe, secure, and resilient. So that is also in the offing. Then recently, some of you may be aware that on 28th of April, CERT has issued a directive which is still under discussion. It basically caters for 6 aspects which all enterprises now have to do. First is the time synchronization, that with the NPL and the NIC clocks, the servers have to be synchronized. The second aspect is that any cyber incident has to be reported within 6 hours of its occurrence. And there is a list of in the annexure as to what constitutes a cyber incident. In fact, a FAQ has also been issued by CERT to clarify. Then establishment of a point of contact for every organization. Then the mandatory logs for 180 days. This is very important, because in our incident response somewhere we found that the logs were either not kept or just kept for 1 month, etc. And you cannot find the initial point of entry and cannot trace as to how the malware has progressed in its lateral spread and escalation of privileges, etc. Then there is a section on the VPS and VPN providers as to how they will also maintain records for a period of 5 years. And finally, there are the aspects of KYC, etc. So this is again an important directive. There is a lot of discussion going on as far as this is concerned, but we expect it to be implemented around 28th of June. Capacity building is very important. We conducted the National Cyber Exercise NCX2022 from 18th of April to 29th of April, and at all levels. This was at a national level, but at all levels, I can assure you, at the states also, at the sectoral level also, the capacity building is taking place. MITI has a program called the Information Security Education and Awareness Program, through which a large number of people are being trained across the nation. At the international level also, some initiatives have been taken. There is a counter ransomware initiative which is being taken by a group of 32 countries, and there are 5 verticals in that. India is leading the vertical on network security and resilience, and the other verticals include the one on illicit finance, there's one on disruption, there's one on cyber diplomacy, and there's one on the PPP. So internationally, like-minded nations are getting together to ensure that these threat actors like ransomware as a service, etc., do not get away, and we will ensure that they do not get away. Then there are certain initiatives as late as the day before yesterday, on 24th, you would have read about the Quad joint statement that has come out from Tokyo, where our Prime Minister had gone. And there are 2 paragraphs of interest to this community. One is the aspect of cybersecurity. I would request all of you to go through that and see the initiatives being taken. And the other one is on the critical and emerging technologies, where again a lot of cooperation is being done. Finally, in this backdrop of the global and the national cyberspace environment, there is no option for the financial sector but to address the aspects of our people, process, and technologies that we've been saying for the last number of years. There is no option now. And this has to be done in the most serious manner, whether it is education and awareness, whether it is the workforce development, whether it is your conduct of audits, as well as incident response, creation of SOCs, SIEM, SOAR. You want to do it through a managed services routes, you want to have your own products, starting off from the terminal end, the endpoint security through the XDR, EDR, etc., the network security, the cloud security, the enterprise security. There's a range of products are available. So depending on the enterprise you represent, this will have to be done. My last words are that after the digital transformation, the mantra for survival in the digital world, there are only two mantras: personal hygiene and cyber hygiene. These are the only two aspects that are most important for survival in today's world. And I want to end on a positive note. Please take care of yourself. And I wish the event all success. Thank you very much for having me here. Jai Hind.